Hello, this is Kris Nelson for EvolveConsciousness.org. I will be reading the article Attachment to Institutional Belief Systems, which is Self-Knowledge Barriers Part 4b. A subset of the belief systems we get attached to and base aspects of our identity upon are the institutions that relate to them. There are specific institutions that sustain, promote, and often control the belief systems they are based upon. Banking controls the monetary system. Religion controls a spiritual aspect. Corporations control businesses that produce and service. Education controls what people learn. Marriage controls how couples live within the system. The medical establishment controls our health. And government controls many aspects of how our lives function. Ultimately, we are the ones who control it all by choosing to give power to the belief systems that they need to exist and give our energy and time towards maintaining their existence. The institutions shape our way of thinking, and we in turn perpetuate and protect them through our identification. The belief system or ideology will continue as long as the institution and people supporting it continue to promote and perpetuate the false notions that pretend to be philosophies. To bring about lasting effective change, we really want to have to bring about lasting effective change we really want to have requires detachment and dissolution of these deceptions and illusions we have bought into and given power to. Many people require a great shift in consciousness. To think one can effect real lasting change within an institution of the system is not to understand what is happening. The system is what keeps things this way. As long as we support, consent, and participate in the sustainment and perpetuation of these institutions, they will continue to exercise varying degrees of control and influence over our lives. Most of us have many boxes of identification based on various belief systems, not based in truth. When our sense of I and who we are is based on these deceptions and lies, it leads us astray. The sense of I gets calcified and concretized into a specific program of The sense of I gets calcified and concretized into a specific program or condition constructed from the many boxes we accept as true and identify with. The I in this solidified state becomes an ego that believes whatever it wants to in order to substantiate a particular belief or make it feel good about itself. The ego has a hard time saying, I am or was wrong, in order to learn from mistakes and change. When we have our initial awakening to awaken, revive, and resurrect care out of the grave of apathy and choose to seek knowledge instead of remaining in ignorance, we think we can get others to understand what we understand by simply presenting them with the same information we come across. Now, I still think I can just speak the truth and people will get it, but they don't get it. They don't want to get it. To continue, we think the facts will speak for themselves and people will be willing to see the truth or look into it further for themselves. But this seldom happens due to the ego personality identity conditioning we are immersed into all of our lives. People are attached to a certain way of seeing the world and themselves in it. And this would be the worldview and our self-image. We accept certain things and maintain their viability in order to maintain our own identities that are based on the prior acceptance. Admitting wrong is very difficult when it will force us to reevaluate and change how we perceive many things in order to make sense of it all again. The inability to learn from mistakes keeps consciousness in a low modality of being where lies and deceptions are held onto as accurate perceptions of reality. Giving up the attachment to hardened beliefs can be too painful or dissonant to go through. So dissonant, cognitive dissonance, that's what I'm referring to. Instead of reassessing our worldview to align our perceptions with reality, truth, and what is, cognitive dissonance has us holding on to our current delusion and entrenching it deeper into the clasps of our ego. Our sense of I, the ego, holds on so tight that we become more attached to the illusions as part of who we are, instead of recognizing the deceptions for the lies that they are. Here I have an image with a quote by Henry David Thoreau, and it's a tree in its roots. He says, "There are 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to one who is striking at the root." And that's what much of my work is about, is getting to the root of all our problems. I don't want to deal with all the many secondary constructs, all the secondary manifestations. I want to go for the root. And that's why I do target veganism, the immorality of non-veganism, the immorality of carnism, and veganism as the moral baseline, the base root solution that we need to build from. I'm not going to accept building from corrupted secondary constructs, because we're not fixing the primary foundation, which is, oh, well, it's okay to exploit, enslave, murder other beings as long as they're not human beings. Other animal beings, who cares? Well, that's the big problem right there. And as long as people don't want to recognize this foundation, well, go fix all of your secondary constructs and work on that for a few hundred years, and then keep ignoring veganism, and then maybe it'll come into popularity. And maybe people will realize that it's the truth, just like anti-slavery is the truth, which is what veganism is. It's all about anti-slavery, anti-exploitation. It's abolition for all animals to not be used as slaves by humans. You know, it's just such a drastic contrast to people's current bullshit ways of living in falsity, that they think they understand themselves and they think they understand reality, and they don't want to face the depth. Even people who do face the depth and change themselves, they don't want to talk about it much, because, oh my god, well, people don't want to accept that. Even though it's the root causal factor. Do you want to tackle the branches? Oh, the manifestation of human slavery. Yeah, well, where did that start? Where did human slavery start? That's what I'm talking about. I go for the root in everything I do. All of my work is trying to get at the root of our problem and target it from there. I'm not interested in secondary layers. That's why I have a rant on gradualism. I don't support gradualism. It's always going for the 1,000 of secondary manifestations that are all evil, but they all stem from the root evil, which isn't being addressed with and will continue to perpetuate into the future. Why will it continue to perpetuate into the future? Because no one's correcting this root causal issue. It's going to continue. Billions of murders every year? Okay, well, that'll just continue for a few hundred years because people don't want to face it, honestly. Even though I doubt that's going to happen. Veganism is the future. Even if you don't want to admit it, it is coming into the future. It is coming now. We need it now. We've always needed it. It's just now it's becoming even more of a need than we've always needed it in our past. The karma of our actions, of all the actions of everyone before us, which is just morality and natural law, that's all karma is. I'm just using it as a word to represent past actions. It's not we're responsible for them. We're responsible for our own. We're responsible for what we create and what other people have created that led to the current condition being what it is now. It's not up to people before us to correct it. They're not here. So that's how karma is karma, because we're here now and we need to correct all the mistakes of everyone before us. That's karma. They're not dealing with, they're dead, okay? There's no reincarnation crap. The true self is one true self, is one higher self, is one higher will. It's all one thing. I'll be getting into this into the future, but just right now, all these information from the law of one, and oh my god, I'm going to trust a channeled source that tells me there's all these soul groups and these whole soul hierarchies. Well, sorry, I don't trust any of that information. My conceptions come from my logical deductions and inductions of reality. And the way I see it, there's us, there's a higher self, a true self, which is truth, love, good, right, morality, natural law, and there's nothing in between. There is no reincarnation of your soul. It's all the same one thing. So that's why there's no reincarnation karma bullshit. It's because we're all that one, the one true self, the one higher self. Yeah, aspects just keep getting put into generation, into reality as individuated units of consciousness in order to create good instead of evil. Let's create heaven on earth instead of the hell. Let's create good. Let's live in good. Let's maximize our potential and value to become and embody the true self. What is truth, love, good, right, morality, and natural law? Let's live it. Let's become it. You want to evolve? That's how you evolve. That's the true self. You want to be the true self? Well, that's it. Everyone is the same. That's why we're all one. It's because we're all that one true self. It's not different souls. I know I'm getting really off topic, but it relates to how, I don't even remember how this relates, but it relates to the evil and how we're not going to the root because we're not identifying with things correctly, and we think that, oh, well, we're allowed to do whatever we want to the other animals. I don't even remember how I got onto this topic of discussion, so I'm just going to end it there. I'm going to continue with the article, and whatever, if it makes sense to you what I was talking about, then good. Otherwise, wait for the future when I delve into this speculative topic into more detail. Anyways, the point is, get to the root, stop dealing with all the secondary manifestations. Oh yes, right, because of human slavery versus, oh, we're going to just end human slavery, that's our focus, yes. Meanwhile, billions of animals are murdered by us disgusting, degenerate, immoral, evil pieces of shit. Yes, let's keep doing that. We're going to create true freedom and peace by not dealing with the root causal factor. No, deal with the root, deal with the baseline, start from the baseline, and then all those secondary manifestations, even if there's a million of them, you know what's going to happen to them? They're automatically going to self-destruct if you start from the baseline of what is right, good, and true, and you build from there. If you don't go back as far back as you can and build properly, well, you're still going to build incorrectly because you haven't corrected things from the root causal foundational factor area. So we still don't want to remove the predatory, dominator, psychopathic mind virus to dominate and enslave and exploit other animal beings. Well, guess what? If you only focus on human slavery, that degenerate mind virus is still going to be rooted in your consciousness. So are you dealing with the root causal factors? No, you're not. Ignore veganism and ignore the root causal factors of how evil was really created and perpetuated and eventually degenerated and or evolved to being applied to our own kind, our own, like ourselves, the specific animal of humans instead of all animals. But first it started against all animals which are less like us. If you want more information, Foundational Living in True Unity, 3-hour, 40-minute presentation. Truth is Love, 3-hour, 40-minute presentation. We'll talk. My first audio, that's why it's longer. I was reading a bit slow. Anyways, it's all about the root causal factors. You want to target crap? Well, go target crap. Don't expect me to get on the same page as you while you ignore what really needs to be targeted so that we can start from a real foundational basis. Do what you do. I'm not going to just abandon what I do because I know what the root causal factor is and you want to ignore it. Well, what do you want me to do? I can tell you how you're ignoring it, and I can keep preaching about how veganism is the moral baseline and how important it is, but I can't make anyone understand it if they don't want to understand it because they think they already understand how the human aspect is more important and how that needs to come first. Well, if you understand root causal factors, then that's the only logic you need to understand. Start from the root and it corrects everything afterwards. Otherwise, if you don't, you're going at secondary manifested layers, and then you're going to be working on each successive deeper root manifested layer until you actually get to the root. Anyways, to continue with the article. Distinguishing truth from falsehood is necessary to increase, expand, and evolve conscious awareness of reality. The inability to differentiate truth from lies, right from wrong, is why we continue to create self-inflicted suffering in general. It is the reason we fail to understand the root causal factors to why we have arrived at our current condition. Failure to understand the nature of the problem and instead applying band-aids to the effects is like cutting at the leaves of the tree of evil instead of targeting the roots to prevent the evil from regrowing in our lives. And that's what my problem with gradualism is. Oh, we gotta improve this and make this better. Yeah, but you're still not dealing with the root problem. You're just, let's give the slaves a better shack. Let's give them running shoes. Let's make them 8 to 4 work weeks instead of 16-hour work days, 8 to 4 work days. I'll give them 5 days a week instead of 7 days a week of work. We're just better slave masters. That's what humanity is working towards. We're working to be little better slave masters. We're working to do a little less evil. That's all. We're not looking to remove evil. We're not looking to be better. We're just looking to be a little bit better, a little less evil. And then it's okay and we can go back to sleep because then we won. We got our gradualistic win and we won. Yay! To continue, the whole illusion of change within the system plays upon the desire for immediate change within existing structures and constructs of living that are familiar and comfortable. So I'm talking about in gradualism. It's all instant fix. We want the instant remedy. We want it now. We don't want it later. We want it right now. Waiting for later, sacrificing ourselves, giving ourselves to truth and morality. Whoa, I don't want to do that. I don't want to put in that hard work of myself. I want to beg people to create coercive external controlling laws in order to enforce immediate change that doesn't even matter. It doesn't. Oh, we're giving the slaves a little bit of a little less slavery. Yay! Did that fix slavery? No. It just made slavery a little more bearable, a little more acceptable. You cast a veil, an appearance, over the truth, and then it makes it more palatable. It makes it more comfortable. The truth is now more comfortable. The slavery is now more comfortable and acceptable. We can continue being slaves for longer now that we've gotten rid of the apparent atrocity, the obvious overtness of evil to our eyes, the thing that was bothering us the most, the gradualism we were fighting for. So now that the slave got a better shack and better working hours, well, we can go back to sleep comfortable in our win, in our immediate change, in our instant gratification. And now we won, so we can just go back to sleep and forget about slavery actually existing. Or we can just fight for the 1,000 other secondary manifested constructs that result from that root causal factor, and just fight that for another 100 years. And then eventually, when we get rid of all those secondary things, then we can actually target the thing that matters, which is the root causal factor. So just wait patiently while we get our daily immediate fixes of changes, rather than taking the hard road of time, energy, and effort, dedication, determination, persistence, and sacrifice and service to truth and morality, and doing it right. God forbid we could actually do things right for once, To continue, rearranging the chairs on a sinking ship won't do anything. The system wants people to believe they can rearrange things, cut away leaves and branches that get too deformed and corrupted in a vain fantasy that next time the branches and leaves won't be part of a problem. Next time they grow, they won't be a part of the tree of evil. And we can just rearrange the chairs and the furniture on the sinking Titanic, and that'll fix things. We don't have to realize that the whole system in the ship was created to sink in the first place. It was just a big trick on people. When the Titanic set off, it was already known that it was going to sink. It was made to sink. It was known that it was going to sink because they wanted it to sink because there was, I forget, it relates to, I guess, World War I. Anyways, there's Zionism and all this crazy shit in the secret societies and all this bankers and paying people and sink the ship because of information. I forget what it was exactly. You can go look into it. But as far as I'm concerned, yes, it was sunk on purpose. Or maybe it's just an accident. Whatever. The analogy fits. We're just idiots trying to rearrange furniture because we're desperately clinging on to our attachments. We don't want to look at truth and morality. We just want to hold on to our attachments of falsity. Oh, system, I can't let go of you, system. Please don't abandon me. I'll feed you more money. I'll feed you more of my energy. Please take care of me. Oh, system, we need to change the furniture. Okay, we're going to change things here and put things over there. Oh, but we're not going to get rid of the system. We're not going to make a new system. We're going to keep the system and keep ourselves in self-inflicted suffering and self-imposed enslavement. Yes, wonderful. We're so smart. Go humanity. Woo-hoo. To continue, many of us recognize the need for things to change, but unless we understand the causal factors, we are just banging on a screen, hoping for change because we don't like what we see. Action is required to change things, but right action. See, not just any action. You need right action, which is wisdom. Not action taken without knowing the root causal factors of why and how our current situation, our current condition has manifested. Acting ignorantly will most likely have us repeating the same mistakes because we have not truly understood the nature of the problem. Things will not change until each one of us changes. We are collectively choosing how to live our lives, and each one of us has an effect on the other. As more people learn to unify their thoughts, emotions, and actions as they express consciousness, as more people choose to align with what is right, good, and true, and in harmony with natural law, we will reach a critical mass where our new way of living will become the overarching, general, common way of living. That's why I say in Foundational Living in True Unity, find the people who are at your moral level and create a new way with them. And you cannot create with people at a lower moral level than you because you're going to be coercing yourself to accept the perpetuation of that immorality other people are creating. And you won't be able to create the new way at the level you're capable of creating with because you're coercing yourself to allow the creation of things that you don't want in your new way. So you're not going to be creating your new way, you're going to still be creating a corrupted, immoral, false way. You cannot ally with people at a lower level of morality. People at the same level of morality, even if they're both thieves, well, they can unite and build a fucking society of thieves that accepts thieves. Whatever, that's their freaking corrupted moral unity. If you want to be real united with people and create a real true freedom and peace future, it needs to be based on the moral baseline, and that's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. To continue, discovering, recognizing, understanding, and uniting with the principles of natural law will bring about freedom, peace, and order. Chaos is created by trying to externally control the free will of others who are not violating natural law. The external control is a result of ignorance and confusion, which all stem from fear. So I just want to make another note on my rant on gradualism, is that I'm against the external control where people are not doing harm, and I am also against the blinding, masking, obfuscating effect that external control has that prevents people from changing on their own, from recognizing the truth, from caring for truth and morality. All it is more external control to force people to do what's right. And it still perpetuates the consciousness, the root causal factor, which is our consciousness that manifests actions. You're going to force them through an external law of control. You're not changing their consciousness. You're not changing how they think in order to change how they act. You're forcing them under penalty of punishment to not do something. Now, if everyone in society was willing to pick up the aspect of external control as natural law causal agents, I would not have a problem with it. But I have a problem with it in that the external control is not coming under natural law causal agent. It's coming under the guise of being a natural law causal agent to uphold right and wrong. So yes, it is upholding right and wrong, but it's not actually from the root causal factor of upholding right and wrong, because the root of that upholding right and wrong is coming from government, which is based in control and coercion and fear and enslavement. So you're having government, this corrupted institution, uphold something that is good, which is no slavery. But you're not doing it from a position of liberation, of evolving consciousness to have people recognize what is right and do it on their own. No, you're not explaining anything. You're just saying, this is the law, and you have to obey it. But you're not helping anyone evolve. The only people that are going to evolve is the next generation, which grows up with their ego personality identity constructs conforming to the social standards and the norms of society that are imposed upon them by people around it and their parents, who are reluctant to change. But as the kids grow up, they realize their parents are wrong about still wanting slavery and being mad about slavery being illegal. Eventually, the one or at least two generations, at most two generations, they grow out of it. And it becomes more the norm of society. That becomes normalized that slavery is evil and it's not acceptable. And then as time passes, the old idiots are no longer in existence to perpetuate the falsity that slavery is good. They cannot indoctrinate and corrupt through conditioning their children that they raise, that are going to form their ego personality identity constructs and have evil accepted as good. Once those people die off, then there's no more of that falsity being propagated as a truth. So that's why you should target consciousness and not external control. Because external control, that still has a new generation being taught by the old generation, which doesn't understand why it's right. They're only forced through the fear of coercion and punishment in order to do the right thing. They're not doing the right thing because they want to, because they understand it. They're being coerced into doing it. So that's why I don't agree with the external control and gradualism without the knowledge and understanding of why it needs to be done. And this is what also bypasses natural law, and people understanding natural law is by treating them as ignorant idiots and just forcing them to do things. Now, if someone violates something and tries to enslave someone, yeah, they should have consequences, which is what I'm talking about. Everyone in society being, quote, police, is that everyone would be involved in stopping the wrong, and then the people who are doing wrong, they would learn really quick how what they're doing wrong is wrong. Because everyone in their community would be telling them every single day how it's wrong, and they would be educating them. And if they still wouldn't end slavery, well, then it would be the people in your community that would beat the shit out of you every single day as long as you still engage in slavery. There wouldn't be a need for politicians, for government to enforce this external control while keeping you ignorant. They just want you to keep you confused in external control and keep you ignorant. So you're never going to understand why they're doing what they're doing because you're ignorant. And they don't care to teach you. They want you to stay ignorant so that you have confusion. And then in that state of confusion where you don't understand, then you're going to seek to externally control even more. You're already in that state. You're already in the enslaver state. But they're controlling you, telling you that slavery's wrong. And then you're confused. You don't understand why it's wrong. It was all right. Everyone was right. Everyone was doing it. Now it's wrong. You don't understand. You're confused. So you're going to seek external control. So you're going to try, even if you're not allowed slavery, maybe you're still going to try to be a slave. Or you're going to be mean to other people. Or you're going to try to hurt other people or whatever. It's not dealing with the proper dynamics in seeking truth and care for truth, which is love as the expansive force of consciousness. They're staying in fear, in the constriction of understanding of reality, by keeping them confused, in ignorance, which is in fear. See, they're not actually helping people elevate themselves to higher states of consciousness because they're not teaching them. They're not bringing them about. They're not teaching them about morality and truth to have them understand why it's wrong. They're just, this is wrong, and obey. Oh, well, there you go. You're still in ignorance, you're still confused, and it's still based on fear. Fear of obey us or face the consequences. There's no education. There's no education out of darkness into the light. It's all just masks of ignorance. And that's why I'm against external control, especially through government. I'm not against external control to stop evil as long as it's everyone involved. But when it's government, it's just based on ignorance, and it just perpetuates more ignorance until generations forget about the lies, and then they live under the indoctrination of order following, just the orders of the state. Just like before, well, it was legal to do slaves, so it's legal, we're just going to follow orders. We're not going to think for ourselves whether it's moral or not. We're just going to follow orders. That you don't have to be a slaver, but it was legal. So no one was thinking for themselves what is true, right and wrong, what's morality. And the same thing after. Well, they're still not thinking for themselves. They're just obeying government. They're just obeying, following orders. They're not thinking for themselves to figure out what's true and what's morality. To continue, I'll just reread the last line, I think. Discovering, recognizing, understanding, and uniting with the principles of natural law will bring about freedom, peace, and order. Chaos is created by trying to externally control the free will of others who are not violating natural law. The external control is a result of ignorance and confusion, which all stem from fear. Now, this is the case when it's people engaging in slavery and in external control, and it's also the case of the government, and it's also the case of the people who are prevented from engaging in their external control through the external control of government, which is all based on ignorance, confusion, and fear. It keeps the people in fear as well. This is what I was just explaining. To continue, the imbalances in our consciousness relate to our use of imagination. If we are left brain imbalanced and have a heavy materialistic physical identification, we can become locked in linear modalities of thought. Today was like yesterday, tomorrow will be like today, and each day will always be the same. Nothing can really change, we are powerless, etc. This is a form of victimization and learned helplessness. This is also the lack of imaginative potential. The right brain imbalanced modalities of thought can produce excessive imagination where anything and everything is possible and sought after without critical thinking and discernment as to the likelihood or probability for the possibilities to occur. Imagination makes it possible to see what can be, to envision differences from what currently is, and understand that things do not have to be as they currently are. Things can change. There are results and consequences for our actions. We are accountable for the choices and decisions that result in specific actions and behaviors we take to manifest in the world. Cause and effect interconnects many things. What everyone else is doing affects what we do, and we are a part of the everyone else that affects each other individually. That affects each other individual. We are all engaging in choosing what way of life we lead collectively, and will collectively feel the consequences of negative actions applied on such a large scale. This is karma again. It's all about aggregate actions. Everything we do adds up to a quantum or amount effect of resulting in what we collectively experience as daily living conditions and acceptable ways of being. The consequences and suffering for maintaining allegiance and attachment to the illusions, deceptions, and lies we believe in will continue to be felt until we recognize how and why we keep getting what we don't want. So we're going to keep getting what we don't want until we take the time to understand how and why we keep getting what we don't want. It is possible it will require chaos and much more suffering before people will snap out of the fantasy dream they have bought into. This I mentioned, I think, in the previous part 4a in self-knowledge barriers about how you need to have something shake you. As I mentioned with Terror Storm, the chaos and that information shook me to my core and woke me up out of my deadened care and apathy towards more of a state of true care, to care for truth and morality and seek to know and seek to learn more. That's what did it for me. So the chaos is what did it for me. It wasn't the chaos in my personal life, it was recognizing the chaos in the world that made me care more. So it is possible it will require chaos and much more suffering before people will snap out of the fantasy dream they have bought into. Most people are so trapped in various barriers to self-knowledge, self-realization, and consciousness, etc., living out conditioned paths with predetermined restricted choices to ensure certain outcomes within acceptable limits and margins of error or deviance to the established program of life. Things keep marching forward in the direction of those who influence our minds and exercise certain amounts of control over our lives, the direction of institutions and various belief systems. When we realize things are not right and things need to change, we need to delve into and discover the truth, no matter how dark and uncomfortable it is. By understanding the truth, we will understand what needs to change to produce what we want. There are requirements with producing certain results. There are requirements to producing certain results. Certain actions or causes are required to produce specific effects. If we don't want to suffer, but be happy and free, then we need to engage in certain modalities of being in order to produce that reality. We can be truly free, but it requires energy and effort on all of our parts. It doesn't just happen on its own, willy-nilly. We can continue to be as we are and continue to perpetuate this condition, or we can learn to change and better the collective general condition of humanity. If we state we want to be free, then we shouldn't be creating controlling institutions that are antithetical to freedom. We state certain goals for life, but due to ignorance of the causal factors of our current condition, we fail to understand the nature of the problem and are not in a position to be able to remove the true cause of the problems to produce what we want instead of what we don't want. We are mostly ignorant of how to create those positive changes, those positive things we want. We continue to engage in modalities of being that will not produce those things. We don't want to admit we don't know and we are wrong. We don't want to learn. We say we don't like what is going on. There's nothing we can do about it, that it can't be changed, or act in preconditioned limited choice paths that give the illusion of changing things while actually perpetuating what we don't want. So it's all us. We just keep feeding the bullshit. We don't want to wake up. We don't want to see it for what it is. Few of us are willing to face the truth and to change and align, harmonize, and unite with the principles of truth and universal cosmic natural moral law. And then also few of those who are actually willing to spread the word and teach others what they have learned. This failure to learn natural law and spread an understanding of it is why we are here. We are steadfast rolling down towards a condition of living where right action will be disregarded in favor of the mindset of control, domination, etc., as prescribed and ordered by man's law. So that's what we're seeing now, is right action isn't so much what is desired in the public hive mind, collective, brainwashed consciousness. They just favor their security and their safety, so the control and domination is replacing what is right, because people don't care about what is right, good, and true. They only care about themselves, my survival and my freedom, which is why the safety and security comes in, because people are only concerned with themselves. They're not looking at reality honestly. They don't even know how to look at reality honestly. They don't know how to think for themselves, and they don't know how to think properly. They're not curious. They don't ask questions. They don't doubt what's been told to them, all the lies. So they just gobble up the lies and take them as reality. I find it very interesting, the link I just made between Satanism of my freedom, my truth, my survival, and the aspect of security. Because that's all people care about is themselves. They're in fear of boogeyman because they don't doubt the lies that are told to them, which creates an image of their mind, and they will just want to be protected because it's all about my survival, my freedom, my truth. They want to survive, they want to be free, And they want to believe whatever they want to believe. That's their truth. Institutional belief systems are shared amongst many people that act in certain ways that are conducive with goals of the institutions. The belief is so ingrained in the modalities of consciousness of people in society that no one questions why the various institutions exist, but are simply believed in unquestioningly. People lack the imagination required to see how we can possibly live, and in better conditions, without the controlling institutions in our lives. Believing in institutions, mind controls someone into thinking things cannot be another way. Because they believe the institution must continue into the future in order for them to survive and to have a future so that they can be free. So again, see how it ties into Satanism? They need the institution so that they can have a job, so that they can make money in order to survive and be free. My freedom, my survival. So they need to believe in the institution and uphold it, or else the institution goes away, then their life goes away as well. So the institutions we support become part of our identity as well. This explains that in a greater aspect compared to the previous article on ego, personality, identity, attachment. This is even more information. Part B and part 4A and 4B go together, pretty much. To continue, any adherence to the validity of institutional belief systems is a result of mind control. Mind control is what keeps people under the thinking and belief that they are necessary and must exist. That the institutions are necessary and must exist. So here I have in quotes, why, without institutions, our world would descend into chaos and destruction. The extermination of the imagination, to fail to envision anything being different, is mind control. So the person say, why, without institutions, our world would descend into chaos and destruction. So they can't imagine anything else. They need the institution to be there in order to provide for their survival and safety. For without that institution, they wouldn't have survival and safety. So they need it there in their lives. It's part of their need for security. It's part of their worldview. So to remove the institution will be to destroy their worldview. If you destroy someone's worldview, then they have to reevaluate themselves and reconstruct themselves, and that's what people don't want to do. So institutions need to be maintained for these people in order for them to have a comfortable sense of identity of themselves, their self-concept, a sense of reality, the worldview. We are convinced institutions are required to continue taking the actions they take, otherwise chaos would emerge. In English, the word institution has another meaning of being committed to an institution, committed to an insane asylum. In reality, when one is committed to and believes in an institution of the system, they are walking the path of insanity by following, subscribing, and supporting something based in lies, deceptions, and delusion. Belief in lies, deceptions, and delusions invariably creates schisms in the mind, psyche, and consciousness. Being, quote, committed to an institution of the system and being, quote, committed to an institution for mental healing are indeed linked in truth. The former institutions are what create breaks from reality by adherence to lies, deceptions, and delusions, while the latter institutions are allegedly there to heal us from the condition induced by the former. So the latter would be government, and the former would be mental institutions. So the former creates the insanity, and then the latter of the mental institutions heals us from our insanity. Or that's what they purport to do. They purport to heal us, but they don't. If you are, quote, committed to an institution of the system, you become invariably, quote, committed to an institution of insanity, of untruth. So when you commit to an institution of the system, you're actually committing to an institution of untruth, because the system is insanity and therefore untruth. And eventually, will need to heal from that poisoned state of mind. When a criticism, attack, or dissolution of lies, deceptions, and delusions is engaged in, someone who adheres and is attached to this erroneous belief they hold sacred will see this as an attack on their own identity. If the institution is doing wrong and you are a part of it, what does that mean for you? You have to reevaluate what you are doing with your time, attention, and energy and figure out if what you think you understand is accurate or not. We don't understand ourselves. We don't want to understand. We want to waste time on watching sports, reality shows, playing games, concerts, drinking beer, taking drugs, escaping from the reality around us, and submerge ourselves into something that targets a sensory perception for us to be aesthetically drawn towards in an effort to engage in frivolous pursuits of pleasure gratification. The pleasure principle rules our lives without our attention to the consequences of these pleasure-driven choices and actions. For those that do care to seek and learn about truth and themselves, this information will assist in serving that purpose. Spreading the truth is the force of love, not watered down truth or compromised in any way, but straightforward, forthright, and honest truth. Facing the hard truths again and again helps to break down the barriers to conscious awareness and expansion. None of the truth anyone expresses is theirs to command and own. Truth belongs to no one in particular. We can all discover and find aspects of truth if we take the time, effort, and energy to do so. There are no gurus, advisors, leaders, etc. We need to be those things to ourselves. We can all be teachers. Elevating oneself with an illusory identity title to hold above others as some form of authority is another ego trap. So, I'm a president of a company. I'm a vice president. I'm a manager. I'm a cop. I'm a priest. All these are titles. Oh, you have to call me Mr. You have to call me Sir. You have to call me Father this. You have to call me Mr. President. These are all titles to attempt to elevate yourself above others as an authority. And all they are labels. They mean nothing. When we engage in the roles of institutions, we identify with the roles we play. We don't want to believe our involvement in institutions participates in perpetuating a negative condition. We don't want to accept the harm we are a part of. We want to believe what they are doing is right and not wrong, good and not bad. They don't want to face the facts they are involved in something wrong, that they are a part of what creates the negative and wrong by simply being a part of it. People want to do good and convince themselves that all they need is the intent and thought to do, quote, good in a controlled, hierarchical, and compartmentalized institution that creates the opposite, evil. We will never be able to effect real positive lasting change at a higher level as long as we are working with institutions and erroneous belief systems. We're not targeting the root causal factor. We're still trying to let the root causal corruption continue while fixing other things. Like I mentioned earlier, that's not the right path. That's not the right way. Go to the root, and then all the other things get corrected automatically almost. At least they get automatically corrected in our minds, which we can then engage in force to correct in our lives in the physical. Well, anyways, it's automatic in our minds in that if you correct the roots, you should be able to follow the causal chain into the secondary manifestations, which will, cascade and blow them up. As you blew up your foundation and you reconstructed, all the secondary manifestations tied to that causal chain should also disintegrate and allow you to reconstruct. Staying within the confines and boxes of institutional belief systems is not walking the spiritual path of truth to gain greater understanding. Many people are very satisfied with the explanations and answers given to them in life. They do not seek or question further. Some people never start the journey. They stay on the ground and toe the line. walking the pre-selected conditioned paths or choices set before them. They are uninitiated, unawakened, and never start the journey or path. Others do start, but become tent pitchers deciding they have gone far enough and don't need to go any further. The path is scary and uncomfortable to go on further than where they currently are. They turn to the pre-selected conditioned paths set out before us and engage in the institutions thinking they will promote good this way. Even though you're walking on pre-selected paths of perpetuating immorality, you still think in your ignorance that you will create and promote good this way. And all you're really doing is promoting evil by perpetuating the evil. Many people think they will vote the world into changing, as if no one needs to think for themselves and be responsible for their own lives. We just need to keep abdicating our personal responsibility and choose to have someone else represent us in life. We just give up our power and decision-making ability for our own behaviors to live in harmony, alignment, and unison with natural law, and instead have someone else decide for us what we can do and can't do, to control us because we don't want to control ourselves, because we don't want to be masters of ourselves, because we don't want to become true sovereigns, united within ourselves and united with what is right, good, and true. Only wrongness, badness, and chaos can come about through this process of trying to give away something granted to each of us. Free will choice and personal responsibility for the actions we choose to engage in are the ways in which we gain truth, love, freedom, and peace. Giving over these powerful capacities we have is to give away ownership of ourselves. Until we learn how to be responsible for our choices and actions in alignment with natural law, we will keep repeating the same mistakes and creating more collective self-inflicted suffering through our choice to be ignorant, apathetic, lazy cowards, living in a trance-like fantasy reality. We need to admit wrong so that we can learn how to solve our problems and get things right. We can't force anyone to change their way of thinking, but we can influence others to help them gain an understanding of the many truths so that they may in turn choose to change themselves in alignment with it. Most people are trapped in ego personality identity correlations with lies. Perhaps an increase in negative results for everyone will bring us to the point of realization to accept we are the problem and point the fingers at ourselves, to realize that thinking the same ways and doing the same things will not achieve the expected different results than what we are currently getting. In the end, institutions fool us and destroy consciousness. So what I'm saying there was just negative results. Increasing negative results for everyone is increasing the chaos for everyone, which I think is what we need. Because people don't really care until it affects them personally, until they start to lose, until they become lost and admit how wrong they are. Things aren't going to change. Each of us that does wake up, we change our lives individually and try to possibly help others change, but I'm finding that until there's some catalyst of evil, of immorality, of chaos that shakes you to the core of your being and makes you care for truth, to seek truth and morality, well, it doesn't really matter how many people tell you things. It doesn't matter how many times you talk to them. There's a certain catalyst that is required. I guess we need to be talking to people about all the evil in the world. I think maybe that's what we need to do. Solutions aren't required for the asleep masses. They need to care about truth and morality first, to learn about the evil. Because they're just lazy and they want the quick fixes, they want the solutions, but they're not even looking at the evil. They don't have the catalyst to care for truth and morality deeply enough. And even the truthers that pretend they are awake and pretend that they care for truth and morality deeply, they don't care for truth and morality deeply enough. They still have not developed that deeper aspect of care, of true care within themselves. To care for truth and morality over themselves, to detach from themselves more and attach to truth and morality more than they attach to themselves. Most people have not reached this level. Very few people in the truther movement, 1 to 3% of people have this depth of care for truth. Or maybe 5%. These are all just estimations from my own experiences with other people. So few people have the depth of care for truth to face reality as it is and not cloud it with their own subjective attachment to themselves. It's a really hard thing, it seems, for people to get through. No matter how much they say they're a truth seeker, that's what I'm talking about in previous articles. People love to lie to themselves. It's the easiest thing they do. Lying to other people is easy, but is harder, because if you know the lie, then you have to know the lie and then speak. If you know the truth, then you have to speak the lie. So lying to others is harder. But when you lie to yourself, you don't even want the truth. The truth isn't even in your mind. You're just lying to yourself. And then when you propagate that lie to others, well, that's easy, because you've already accepted the lie as a truth. Alright, to continue. We can become conscious co-creators of our collective shared experience, collective shared existence, instead of unconscious co-creators, following the predetermined, preselected, and limited plans, paths, and choices set before us by others who wish to channel our energy into vehicles of their choosing. We can choose one thing from the many possibilities. This is what discernment, differentiation, evaluation, judgment, etc. are for. The tools we have access to function properly and accurately depending on our knowledge and previous use of the tool to improve our understanding and ability to use the tool. The more we use something, the better we get at it. Discernment, evaluation, judgment, etc. are about learning what we need to do to create a certain result we want to achieve. If we want a different result, we need to choose a different action. Here I have an image meme. It says, life is not about having and a getting. Life is not a having and a getting, but a being and a becoming. So it's not about what you have and what you get. It's about being and becoming. What are we being and becoming? It's about being and becoming the true self, the higher will, truth, love, good, right, morality, natural law. It's about becoming that, becoming, exemplifying, embodying those values and principles of truth and morality we say we want to live by. That is how we become and be the true self, not the false self that we're conditioned into and all this bullshit. To continue with the article, be the change we want to see in the world. To create a better world, we have to become and be better versions of ourselves. Many people focus on wanting something to achieve a particular desired condition. We want happiness, so we think we need to do something in the world which will allow us to have something. And once we have done or acquired this something, then we will be happy. So we need something in order to be happy. We need to have and get in order to be, which is the wrong order. So this is do, have, be, and it's not very effective. Instead, if we choose to be a certain way, that is to embody and become certain expressions of consciousness, that is to say, truth, love, good, right, morality, natural law, then we will recognize the conditions to have what we need and do what we want to do. So we'll become truth, love, good, right, morality, natural law, and then we'll have what we need, we'll have the knowledge of ourselves and reality, and then we'll be able to do what we want to do, we'll be able to create true freedom and peace. But the other way, we want to do, have, and be. We gotta create true freedom and peace in order to have the true freedom and peace in order to be happy. That's the wrong way. And anyone who focuses on happiness is completely lost. Go look into my pleasure trap article and pleasure gratification life models, and I have addendum to that, and there's a bunch of stuff on the pleasure trap. And on you focus on there's another article, a little post on true happiness. Anyways, true happiness is a deception. Anyone who focuses on that is confused about life. Happiness results from other things. which is truth, love, good, right, morality, natural law. Focus on that, then you will create true freedom, true peace, true happiness, and everything else true you want to create that's good. To be and become, embody, align, harmonize, etc., more with one polarity than the other involves doing work on ourselves. In effect, being is indeed doing, and doing is an aspect of being. It may be confusing at first to grasp, but the distinction is with focusing on the order and the level. The do have be is from the external to the internal. Be do, to have, is working from the internal to the external. So we want to be, and then we want to do so that we can have. So be, truth, love, good, reality, truth, love, good, morality, natural law. You want to be that so that you can do what is good, right, and true, and then you will have true freedom and true peace and true happiness. And the false way is, well, do those things without being them. Then you can have those things in your false delusional appearance, and then you'll finally be the thing you want to be, which is happy. So you got to do things in order to be happy, which is true in a sense, but you have to be the true self in order to do things as a true self, in order to have happiness as a true self. Because if you're focusing on being happy first, well, happy on what? What did you do? You're going to self-induce a state of happiness into you, even though it's not based on anything you're doing? So you could be doing evil and you'd still be happy? Well, I call that living in delusion. You have to be and become what we aspire to as the ideal of the true self, the higher self, and the higher will. Continually embody aspects of that, live it and do it in your life, and then you'll have those things you want. Those inner feeling states of being happy. Those inner feeling states come after. First, you need to change your mind and be, to care for those things, to care for those transcendental aspects of being, so that you can be more those transcendental aspects of being. Anyways, might be confusing, but go do some thinking about it and you'll understand. We need to do the inner work to get ourselves to a position of understanding the inner and outer reality in order to achieve what we want outside of ourselves. Now, I've made an infographic about this recently. Time learning versus time acting. Also inner work versus outer work. You need a certain amount of time learning before you can act properly. You need a certain amount of time working on yourself before you can work on the outside world. And learning doesn't stop and the inner work doesn't stop. So you need a certain amount of development, a prerequisite development in order to reach a certain position of understanding yourself and reality accurately so that you can engage in right action instead of just engaging in any action that you think is right but is actually a foolish action. To bring about peace in the world, we first need to bring about peace in ourselves to a certain extent. To not have violence engaged in throughout the world, each of us needs to not engage in violence as part of our way we live. It's part of the way we live. To remove ourselves from involvement, participation, consent, and support of violence. Hint. Big hint. What do you think veganism is? What do you think the concept of ahimsa is? It's about doing no harm. It's about removing ourselves from participation and involvement in violence, harm, exploitation, and enslavement. Yet people don't want to look, it's a diet, veganism's a diet. All I understand about veganism is that it's a diet. Veganism is a diet. How dare you tell me what to do in regards to my diet? Well, moron, maybe you should go learn about how veganism isn't a diet. It involves a change in diet as a result of removing evil from what we put into our bodies, from our actions that we participate in, what we pay others to do. If you could grow meat As far as I'm concerned, it's disgusting anyways. Meat, dead body, carcass, flesh, corpses, eggs, milk, fluids, secretions, it's all nasty. Once you actually think about it and get it through your head what it is that you're actually ingesting. If you could actually grow it in a laboratory, then there would be no harm involved. None. So you want to eat laboratory meat? Was it taken from an animal? No. Was an animal used, exploited? No. Then it probably isn't involving any harm. You want to eat some... Understand where it comes from an animal, that it's a dead corpse and dead corpse, a carcass, a cadaver, a dead body, a rotting corpse, and then you want to eat that, and why you'd want to eat that if it's grown from a lab. It's all gross either way you look at it. It's disgusting. But the main part is no harm. So technically, if you want to eat laboratory grown animals, I don't think that would be called veganism, but at least you'd be in ahimsa. Not laboratory grown animals, I mean laboratory grown meat. If you grow anything as an animal, as a being in itself, then it can have harm, and then you're gonna harm it. If you're just growing, I don't know, a muscle, like you can grow an ear, I don't know. It's all gross to me, but okay, maybe you wouldn't be vegan, but you wouldn't be doing harm. So I don't really care about the vegan label. I only use it as a representation to demonstrate that I do not harm animals. I could also use the word ahimsa. That's why I put vegan and veganism in quotes whenever I use it, because it's a word and people use it incorrectly all over the place. Which is why I put other words in quotes. Like I put the word Jew in quotes, because the identity of Jew, what a Jew is very confusing, and even people who call themselves, it's basically a self-identification label. I can call myself Christian, I can call myself Jew, I can call myself Muslim. In terms of Jewishness, people call themselves Jew, and it has nothing to do with being Jewish. They're not religious, which is what Judaism is, but then they consider themselves a race, but Judaism isn't a race, because it's a religion. You can't be a Jew race. There's Ashkenazi Jews, there's Sephardic Jews, there's Yemenite Jews. Clearly it's not a race, just like there's different types of Christians. Christianity isn't a race, but people want to believe that they're Jewish by race and not by religion. But even if they're not by religion, then they're secular Jews. Even if they don't believe in the genetic thing. And it's secular, even though they're not religious, they still have a tribal attachment. Anyways, this is all dealing with Zionism and stuff, and this is what got me into understanding identity and psychology even before I got into Mark Passio, because I was into anti-Zionism early on, and what's going on in Israel and how it relates to the world geopolitical situation. And it goes back to World War II and World War I. And anyways, the whole identity labels we all carry is very interesting, and it's all bullshit. And one of the easiest places to see how it's bullshit is when you look at the word Jew and how people self-identify themselves as being Jewish. There's no accurate definition. It's all wish-wash. It's all fantasies in people's minds. Oh, well, I'm Jewish. Oh, well, I'm Christian. Oh, well, I'm this and I'm that. It's all bullshit in your mind. Alright, to continue. To think peace, nonviolence, or anything positive can be had in the world without first having attained this state of being and doing for ourselves is foolish thinking. If you think you're going to create peace in the world, if you think you're going to create non-harm in the world while you still create harm, i.e., if you still create harm towards other innocent living beings who breathe and think and feel and see and hear and smell and touch like us, i.e., that is to say, other non-human animals, you're going to still harm them, and you think you're going to create a world of no harm, of non-violence, of peace, of true freedom and peace, while you're still creating anti-peace and anti-freedom? You're living in delusion. So all you carnists who want to deny the importance of veganism, you're living in delusion. All you vegans who want to deny the importance of veganism are living in delusion. Simple. To continue. The reality we collectively the reality we collectively live in is a reflection of the sum total individual expressions of consciousness. As each of us changes, we in turn influence and affect others to change, and eventually this leads to everyone changing. When we are being a certain way and seeing the conditions to what we want, when we are being a certain way and seeing the conditions to do what we want, we have the responsibility to act in the world in morally upright ways that will influence and affect others towards the positive spectrum of being. Live by example, be the change. Being isn't simply being isn't simply thinking it, but is actually doing it through the wisdom of right action in alignment with what is right, good, and true. And that's why I said earlier that it's be and do together. It's not just be, have, do, or do, have, be. It's actually, when you're doing it right, it's be and do. Because when you're being, it's to know and not to do is not to know. So if you think you're being, you've changed the way of being internally in your consciousness, but you haven't changed your action, then you haven't changed your being, because you haven't manifested it completely in the trinity of consciousness. Your being is still corrupted. Even if you've changed your way to think and you realize it's true, if you haven't actualized the truth and lived the morality of what you understand to not do harm to others who have not harmed you, then you're not being it, because you're not doing it. Being involves doing. If you're not doing it, then you're not being it. I hope this is understood by people. It's simple once you think about it. People like to separate, it's less about doing and it's more about being, all this new age pseudo-spiritual crap. Anyways, I've come into these phrases before in the past. Oh, it's not about doing, it's more about being. No. It's about being so that it's about doing, which reflects your being, and being reflects in your doing. So if you're not doing, then you're not being. You can lie to yourself all you want. So it's about being and doing so that you can have what you want to have, which is true freedom and peace. You have to be and do morality, become morality, live morality, do morality, and then we'll have true freedom and peace, and we'll have happiness, and all the other stuff. To continue, we all share this common purpose to help each other create the world we all want to live in that is truly in alignment with what is good, right, and true. Otherwise, we just do what we want and keep going on the selfish, self-preserving, and pleasure-seeking comfortable gravy train towards more self-inflicted suffering. Our society has institutions that run various functions. These institutions influence, maintain, and perpetuate certain belief systems. We are immersed in a reality that conditions us to engage in a certain modality of living. Our identity, personality, ego, and sense of self are based upon the various influences in our experience. We have a false self-image and self-concept of ourselves taken from the many attachments we have made to erroneous beliefs we base our sense of self upon. Institutions are based in control, hierarchy, and compartmentalization, which is not conducive to our freedom and progress forward in evolution. We don't need these deceptions and delusions of control in our lives that we use as anchor points to base our identities upon. Facing who we think we are and our attachment to various beliefs can be scary, with avoidance, denial, and cognitive dissonance kicking in as a self-defense mechanism to preserve the current self-perception, self-image, self-concept, etc. the ego is attached to. Know thyself is partly a negative process in that it is apophatic. It's about looking at the negative and letting go of attachment to that which is false, wrong, bad, evil, or immoral for our overall positive evolution, and working towards aligning ourselves with what is right, good, and true. You let go of the bad and attach to the good. And that is the end of this article. The next one will be higher self and lower self. That is part 5 of self-knowledge barriers and the final part. So thank you very much for your time and attention and listening to me read this article. Have a nice day. Take care. Peace.